My name is Isla Mercer, and every December my family forgets I exist. They call it a mix-up, a joke, or sometimes silence. Year after year my phone stays quiet while the photos of their matching pajamas show up online, smiling faces in front of the same golden Christmas tree I helped decorate when I was still invited. The first year it happened, I told myself it was an accident. The second, I sent polite reminders, pretending not to notice the awkward pauses that followed. By the third, I stopped checking my messages altogether. There's only so many ways to pretend you weren't meant to be left out. So this year I did something different. I signed a contract, wired the down payment, and bought a house on a mountain, a place where no one could forget me again. The cabin was small, made of cedar and glass, and it had a porch wide enough to hold 12 people, or none at all. I sent invitations anyway, formal, embossed, impossible to overlook. I wanted to see if anyone would even reply. Most didn't. My cousin Renee sent a 3-word text. "Will pass, sorry." That's when I realized something. I didn't need an invitation to belong somewhere. I just needed to build a place that didn't need permission to be happy. So this year, while my family gathered under their golden lights, I hung my own. A sign above the porch that said, "Everyone's welcome except excuses." And for the first time in years, the silence didn't hurt. It sounded like freedom. The first time it happened, I told myself it was a mistake. I was in Chicago then, buried in deadlines and winter traffic. Mom called 2 days after Christmas, voice soft. "We thought you were with friends, honey." I said it was fine. It wasn't. The next year, Renee made a family gathering group chat. Everyone added except me. When I asked, she replied, "We didn't think you could make it. Flights are expensive, right?" I stared at the blinking cursor, wondering how far family could stretch before it broke. By the 3rd year, I stopped waiting. But every photo they posted, matching pajamas, glittering tree, felt like proof I'd been erased. I wasn't angry, just invisible, so I made my own traditions, baking ginger cookies too heavy with cinnamon wrapping gifts for no one lighting 1 candle on Christmas Eve. I told myself I didn't need them. But silence grows louder the longer you ignore it. Last spring work took me to Pine Hollow, a mountain town untouched by time. Snow drifted in slow spirals, the air sharp with pine and smoke. That's where I found the cabin's cedar walls, frosted windows, a porch big enough for laughter long gone. I bought it the next day. Not for revenge, but for peace. I painted walls, fixed shutters, filled the pantry, bought a radio that only played old Christmas songs. The silence here didn't hurt. By November, I knew what to do. I sent invitations to everyone who'd ever forgotten. As I dropped them into the blue postbox outside Pine Hollow's post office, I smiled for the first time in months. I wasn't hoping they'd come. I just wanted them to know I'd stopped waiting. The drive to Echo Ridge was the kind of quiet that felt holy, snow-tipped pines, sunlight breaking like gold through the branches. The cabin was smaller than I remembered, lonelier too, but it didn't need to be grand. It just needed to be mine. The previous owner, a retired ranger, had left a note on the fridge. "The generator hums louder when it's proud. Keep her fed." It made me laugh. That old generator became my companion through November, its hum steady as I learned the rhythm of isolation. Then came Val Torres, my neighbor from down the hill, all scarves and sarcasm. She showed up with soup and a warning. 3 bundles of wood. "You'll need 30. Winter here doesn't flirt, it commits." Val became my mountain guide. She taught me how to stack woodchuck detectors and read the wind. "The mountain always warns you," she said. "You just have to listen." So I did, listening to creaking trees, elk in the snow, my own breath in the silence. I filled the cabin with light candles, fairy strings, a heartbeat I built myself. By December, I mailed the invitations: Mom, Renee, Caleb, Uncle Ben, Echo Ridge Cabin, Pine Hollow, CO. Then waited. Only one reply, Renee. "We'll pass this year. Too busy with hosting." No apology. Just cold words matching the snow outside. I didn't answer. I stepped onto the porch and hung the wooden sign I'd carved, "Everyone's welcome except excuses." Val passed by, grinning. "That's one way to start a tradition." I smiled. That's the point. Inside, the radio played Silent Night. And for once, it didn't sound ironic. The first snowstorm hit earlier than expected. By mid-December, Pine Hollow had turned into a postcard: white roofs, frozen creeks, and pines so heavy with snow they bent like they were praying. Inside my cabin, the air smelled like cinnamon and cedar. I was kneeling by the fireplace when Val stopped by, her cheeks red from the cold. Got everything you need? She asked, stomping the snow from her boots. Enough wood to outlast the ice age, I said. She chuckled. Good. They're predicting a blizzard this weekend. Power lines go down fast here. You'll want your generator ready. That night, as the wind howled outside, I had an idea. Maybe I couldn't make my family come, but I could make Christmas bigger than them. I grabbed my sketch pad and started writing plans for something I called the open table. It wasn't complicated, just an invitation to anyone in town who might be stranded alone or curious enough to brave the weather. I'd serve soup bread and hot chocolate. Nothing fancy. Just warmth, light, and maybe a reminder that kindness didn't need an RSVP. The next morning I mentioned it to Val over coffee. She smiled. You might be new here, but that's exactly how this town works. People show up when the lights are on. So I spent the next few days preparing. I cleared the porch, hung wreaths made from pine branches and stacked logs by the fire. The cabin looked alive now, like it had been waiting for this all along. I recorded a short video for Nina, my friend from work who ran a holiday vlog. If the weather doesn't knock us off the grid, I told her maybe you can show people what Christmas without pretense looks like. She promised to share it with her followers, no filters, just firelight. On December 23rd, the town radio issued its warning. Blizzard conditions expected within 24 hours. I looked out at the endless white horizon and felt something strange excitement. Maybe it was foolish, but for the first time in years I wanted Christmas to come. I lit the lanterns on the porch, their glow flickering against the storm clouds rolling in. Above the door, the sign swayed in the wind. Everyone's welcome except excuses. I wasn't sure who would show up, but I knew this year if anyone came knocking, I'd be ready to open the door. By Christmas Eve morning, the sky had turned the color of pewter. The wind had teeth sharp and steady, and the snow fell sideways. From the window, I watched the pines bow under the weight of it all. The radio crackled with static and warnings, whiteout conditions expected. Power outages likely. Stay indoors. I double-checked the generator, stacked extra firewood by the door, and boiled a pot of soup just in case. Val had gone into town the day before to check on a neighbor, and she'd promised to radio me if the roads closed. By noon, the storm had swallowed the world outside. The lights flickered once, then went out completely. The hum of the generator kicked in, filling the silence like a steady heartbeat. The cabin glowed a soft amber from the lanterns. It wasn't much, but it felt alive. Then came the knock. At first I thought it was the wind, but it came again, 3 sharp raps against the wooden door. I froze. Nobody should have been out there. I grabbed my coat heart hammering and opened it just wide enough to see. Snow blew in cold and heavy, and through it I saw them, my mother, Renee, and Caleb, huddled together, faces pale from the cold. Isla. Mom gasped, her voice muffled through her scarf. The road's closed. The power's out in town. We didn't know where else to go. For a moment, all I could do was stare. The irony was almost cruel. After years of forgetting they'd come knocking because they had nowhere else to belong, I stepped back. Come in, I said quietly. But you'll have to follow the rules. Renee frowned. Rules? Everyone who comes in helps, I said. No excuses, no pretending. We're keeping each other warm, not playing host. Caleb nodded right away, moving to stack wood by the fire. Mom gave me a small, grateful look before pulling off her gloves. Renee hesitated, her eyes darting to the sign above the door, everyone's welcome except excuses. She opened her mouth, then shut it again. For once, she didn't have anything clever to say. As I closed the door, the sound of the storm softened behind the walls. Inside, the air was thick with firelight and tension, but also something new. For the first time in years, we were in the same room, not because they remembered me, but because they couldn't forget the warmth. By the time night fell, the storm had sealed the world outside. Snow draped over the porch railings and pressed against the window panes, turning everything into a soft, ghostly white. Inside, the fire burned low and steady, and the air smelled of pine bread and smoke. My family huddled near the hearth like refugees from a life they'd chosen without me. No one spoke for a while. The silence stretched, not awkward, but dense, like we were all trying to remember how to be around one another. Finally, Renee broke it. This place is nice, she said, eyes darting around the cabin. I didn't know you could, build something like this. I smiled faintly. You didn't ask. She flinched a little, but said nothing. Mom sat across from me, her hands wrapped around a mug of cocoa. Isla, I owe you an apology, she said. her voice trembling between regret and exhaustion. "We never meant to leave you out. I think I just let it happen. Every year I thought someone else would invite you." Her words hung there, fragile but honest. I stirred my cocoa slowly. "You know what hurt the most?" I said softly. "It wasn't that you forgot. It was realizing you remembered and decided I didn't matter enough to fix it." Mom's eyes filled, but she didn't look away. "You're right," she whispered. "I did that." Outside, the wind screamed against the glass, as if the mountain itself wanted to drown us out. But inside, something shifted. Caleb added more logs to the fire, and the flames flared higher, bathing us in gold. After a moment, I stood up and went to the table I'd set earlier. A loaf of bread soup still warm, 3 extra bowls waiting. "If you're staying," I said, "you might as well join dinner. It's an open table, remember?" Renee hesitated, then rose and walked over. "I'll help," she said quietly this time. We sat together, awkward, silent, but together. No small talk, no apologies big enough to fix the years between us. But there was warmth, real warmth. When the lights flickered again, I half expected them to go dark, but they held steady. Maybe it was the generator, maybe it was something else. As Mom reached for another piece of bread, I noticed her smile, small, tired, but real. For once, it wasn't forced. That night, the storm raged harder. But inside Echo Ridge Cabin, peace had finally learned my name. When I woke, the storm was gone. Outside, the snow lay untouched, glittering under pale dawn. I stood with my coffee, watching light crawl up the trees, melting icicles 1 drop at a time. The stillness felt sacred. Behind me, floorboards creaked. Mom stirred first, then Renee, hair, messy eyes, softer than I remembered. "Coffee?" I asked. She smiled faintly. "Thanks." We sat in quiet that didn't need mending. Then Mom said, "This place suits you. You look happy." "I am," I said. She hesitated. "I didn't realize how far we'd drifted. You built something solid here. I think I was afraid to see you didn't need us. I never wanted to stop needing you," I said. "I just couldn't keep waiting." Her eyes shone. "Maybe now we can stop pretending it never happened." Renee joined us at the window. "If you ever do this again," she said, "maybe you won't need to send an invitation." I smiled. "You think you'll remember?" She laughed softly. "I'll set a reminder." Sunlight spilled over the ridge, turning the snow to gold. The cabin felt warmer alive. Before leaving, Mom slipped a folded note onto the counter. After they drove away, I opened it. "You built a home that remembers you. We won't forget again. Won't forget." I stood on the porch, watching their tire tracks fade into the trees. For the first time in years, I didn't feel left behind. I wasn't waiting anymore. I had already arrived. When the snow began to melt a few days later, I walked outside and stood at the edge of the ridge. The air was sharp cold enough to sting, but the sunlight felt warm on my face. Below me, the valley glittered miles of silver and white, the world washed clean. For years, I thought family meant being invited, being included, being wanted. But standing there, I finally understood family isn't the people who remember you when it's convenient. It's the people who show up even if it's because they've run out of places to hide. That Christmas didn't fix everything. It didn't erase the years of silence or the ache of waiting for calls that never came. But it gave me something I hadn't realized I'd been missing: closure, not through revenge or guilt, but through clarity. When I went back inside, the fire had burned low, leaving the cabin smelling like wood smoke and warmth. The note from Mom still sat on the counter. I tucked it into my journal, not because I needed the words, but because it was proof that things could change, even if just a little. I poured myself 1 last cup of coffee and looked around. The wreaths were starting to dry, the lights dimming the plates still on the table. It wasn't perfect, but it was mine. For the first time, I didn't feel like the girl who'd been left out. I felt like the woman who had chosen peace over resentment, solitude over begging to belong. Maybe they would come again next Christmas. Maybe they wouldn't. Either way, I'd still hang the same sign over my door: "Everyone's welcome except excuses." Because now I know what it means to invite the right people into your life, and sometimes that person is you.